Ladies and gents, welcome to UX, and this is The Sting to Catch Russian Mercenaries by channel Cappy Army. Here's another Cappy Army video. This is about catch. Is it now like current thing or is this from the past? I mean, CIA working to catch Russian mercenaries right now would be like something that causes issue because USA is staying out of the war directly. So like Putin can get pissed off like, oh, why is USA entering? So I'm guessing this is probably going to be something from the past. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Let's watch this one.
This lakeside resort in Belarus was once a quiet Soviet-era getaway for government officials. But in July 2020, a group of men arrived here by bus, looking less like tourists and more like soldiers. They're Wagner mercenaries who were fresh from fighting in Ukraine, Syria, and Africa. For 2 days, they lounged around the spa in track pants and combat boots, sticking out like sore thumbs among the regular vacationers. Unknown to these mercenaries, though, their every move had been being closely tracked and surveilled for weeks by multiple different intelligence agencies, including Ukraine, the CIA, and Belarus's KGB. That's when the resort was stormed by armed police.
On security forces raiding a health resort near Minsk, the video of the raid itself raised questions about why the suspected mercenaries, said to belong to the Kremlin-linked Wagner group, were in Belarus.
From the Bellingcat report, a dramatic and unexpected surprise for the mercenaries. Just before dawn at 4:30 a.m., a Spetsnaz team from the A group of Belarus's KGB raided the hotel, launching stun grenades into the Russian mercenaries' rooms through their balconies. The assault team handcuffed the Russians at gunpoint. They ransacked their luggage and clothing looking for weapons. The men were then paraded around on state television, where they were accused of working for the Kremlin as part of a plot to overthrow Lukashenko in Belarus. Belarus believed that they were there as part of a coup plot against the government.
Authorities say they have information that more than 200 fighters had entered the country to destabilize it ahead of the August 9th election.
But Moscow claimed that they weren't involved at all, and it turned out the truth was far more strange. It was a Ukrainian intelligence sting operation working alongside the CIA to capture what they claimed were Russian war criminals. And this was just the beginning of what would become known as Wagnergate, one of the most elaborate intelligence sting operations in modern Eastern Europe, with fallout that ripped.
Okay, how did Belarus and Lukashenko go from like, oh, Putin's trying to sabotage me to like, oh, Putin is my best buddy? Belarus basically Russia 2.0. How did that happen?
All the way back to the United States. But before we get into that, this episode is sponsored by Jocko Fuel. A lot of protein drinks out there give me the bubble guts because most of them are filled with a bunch of junk that your body doesn't actually want. But Milkshake is different. It gives me a full day's worth of protein in one ready-to-go bottle that has 30.
Yeah, I drank, I don't know which brand it was, but I drank one of the like protein shake. It's shit, man. It's so thick. I think it has a casein in it. It's not just whey, it's whey and casein, which is like, okay. But it's like, it's harder to digest and it's thick. That's how casein work. It's slow digesting. So like, I don't know. It's better to just like drink protein powder. Maybe this, I don't know.
Grams of grass-fed protein. It has 0 artificial sweeteners, none of that soy, and 0 gut bomb fillers. Its taste is smooth and rich, kind of like a milkshake actually. What it doesn't taste like is someone just mixed chalk dust into a blender like some of those other protein shakes I've had in the past.
I also drink like Optimum Nutrition Gold Standard. Is that common? Because that's like, it's not it's average priced whey powder, right? Like there are much costlier than that. I use them, but I don't know, like, I don't know. There is hydrolyze, which is like even more costlier. But I think like people just use Gold Standard for some reason.
When I'm in the zone, editing, or out at the range, Mulk's my move. If your days are legit absolute chaos, gym in the morning, meetings in the afternoon, maybe chasing kids or deadlines, Mulk is one decision you don't have to overthink. Every batch is third-party tested. What's on the label is exactly what's inside. No surprises except maybe how good it tastes. I see in the comments that you guys love Jocko Fuel, so it's a win-win. It helps support the channel and it gets you a great deal. So just click the link in my description of the video or the pinned comment below, or go to jockofuel.com and use code CAPPY25 for 25% off your first order. Back to the episode. The way this mission started was in 2014, Russia annexed Crimea and funded separatist groups in eastern Ukraine. Mercenary groups like Wagner were sent to fight against Ukraine for the first time in operations that were officially denied by the Kremlin.
They added that the Russian state does not use mercenaries.
American intelligence reports estimated that in some cities, roughly 60% of the Ukrainian intelligence community were double agents suspected of working with Moscow still. The parts that were loyal to Kyiv reached out to the CIA for assistance, and Washington helped them rebuild almost from scratch, pouring in tens of millions of dollars into training a new generation of operatives in Western-style spycraft. They were given secure comms and covert satellite surveillance. Ukraine's GUR Military Intelligence Directorate quickly evolved.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I've been watching a lot of Ukraine videos after the Ukraine thing in past couple of years. And it was surprising like how much CIA was like involved and USA was involved into like building Ukraine and like reinforcing its intelligence network and everything, where CIA and Ukraine was just like working together because obviously because of Russia, right? Since the fall of Soviet Union, that's been the case. It really surprised me how the fuck Ukraine was caught off guard when Russia just invaded. When they were literally building barracks of like medical tents and everything. USA even said like, oh, they're preparing for invasion. None of them take seriously. They literally share intelligence before this. Like there was a lot of element there. I don't get it. Why was they caught surprised there? And I always said that maybe this is stupid, but if they knew this was happening, wouldn't NATO just like station their troops in the Ukraine for like exercise purposes? Not to threaten Russia, but if NATO is there, Russia won't invade because that means NATO's under attack and NATO might fight back. You know, that kind of thing. Like that Breaking Bad clip, right? Where what's his fucking name? Giancarlo's character, I forgot his name, right? He just like walks in front of sniper, knowing then they're not gonna shoot him, type of way. Like they could have done some shit like that. I don't know.
Into one of the most aggressive services in Europe. So when they started planning this risky sting operation to capture alleged war criminals, they drew on this experience partnering with US intel agencies. The operation reportedly started as early as 2014, when Ukraine first started gathering data and creating profiles on Russian mercenaries who were fighting in the east of the country. The targets of the operation were men who were accused of some of the ugliest crimes of the war. Two were allegedly present when their unit launched the ground-to-air missile that blew up the civilian airliner MH17 in 2014. Others were accused of taking part in atrocities in the Donbass, from murder to torture, and worse that I can't mention here in polite company.
What happened to that one, man? They blew up a fucking commercial line with people inside. Nothing happened about that? Like, oh, whoops, is that what it is? Because that shit is frightening, man. Like, okay, nothing's gonna happen. I guess people just blow up a fucking, yeah, like nothing gonna happen.
Know what I mean? These were the kind of war criminals that Ukraine wanted to put on trial for the world. The SBU, which is like America's version of the FBI, built files on individual militants who committed serious crimes. By 2018, the SBU had this intricate understanding of the Wagner private military company structure from the top down. Where did I put my visual aid for this part? No, it's not in there. Oh, here it is. There you go. Now, if I show it from the top down, it seems more authoritative. Most importantly, they had learned how Wagner recruited and rotated troops to and from assignments, something that would be absolutely vital for their upcoming sting operation. By 2019, the mission became far more serious because their rendition operations were becoming more successful. Ukrainian agents attempted to abduct a high-value target, Vladimir Teskmak, from deep inside Russian-controlled territory. Teskmak was wanted by Ukraine for murder, and he was said to be the man in charge of the air defense battery that was in the region where Flight MH17 was downed. Ukrainian agents crossed over deep into Russian-controlled territory. They knocked Teskmak unconscious, and then they put him in a wheelchair and rolled him across the occupied territory to a checkpoint back into Ukraine. They showed the guards at the checkpoint fake documents that they had prepared and told them this elaborate cover story about how they were helping the paralyzed man get medical attention that he needed to go back into Ukraine.
That shit did not happen. They did not just pull a Hollywood move there. Literally just knock him and put him in a wheelchair, or just like, oh, it's just, yeah, I'm just helping the guy. Don't worry about it.
It was a tactical weekend at Bernie's extraction. This mission revealed that Russia's security services weren't aware of who was wanted for arrests and who was being targeted by Ukraine. And due to that success, Ukrainian intelligence began planning a far more ambitious sting operation. They then advertised high-paying jobs online that were for $5,000 a month to guard oil facilities in Venezuela under like a Rostec oil contract. For Russian veterans, that was far more than double what their going rate normally was. Applications came pouring in to the Ukrainians, posing as the PMC. And the thing is, mercenaries aren't known for being cautious dudes. They weren't the type to delete their cookies and browser history.
Literally just walking towards like, oh, where's the bounty? That's what the people are. This literally, like in video games, in Witcher 3, bounty board. That's what the mercenaries are.
These guys were sending in scanned passports, military IDs, selfies in combat gear next to dead bodies, even videos bragging about the battles in Ukraine that they'd fought in. They were willingly sending incriminating evidence without realizing it. The Ukrainian agents on the other side would say, "Nah, you weren't actually that bad of a boy, prove it, or you can't join the team." Then the Russian mercs would respond by sending back a proof that they were as bad as they claimed.
You know what? We need some badass people, not some bitches. How many people you kill? Man, I killed 100 people with my bare hand. Nah, you didn't. Yes, I did. Here's a photo. Here's a video. I did all of that.
Ukrainian officer later told CNN they were literally sending us evidence of their own war crimes, end quote. The operation was given the codename Project Avenue and was led by 6
mustard gas?
Ukrainian
Yes, I did.
operatives. Their goal in the mission was to trap a number of Russian mercenaries and gain proof of their connection to Moscow. The intel operatives brought on a Ukrainian combat veteran, someone who was very familiar with the way Russian mercenaries spoke and the kind of language that they used. He would pose as a recruiter under the fake name of Sergei Petrovich. According to the years-long investigation done by Bellingcat and The Insider, Ukraine also had a double agent working for them on the inside in Russia who helped make their fake PMC look even more legit. According to Bellingcat, the intel operatives made the choice to use an out-of-date, defunct old PMC called MAR. Here is the actual dead website of it. MAR had already had some street cred in Russia, but it was no longer active, so it was perfect for them to co-opt. The GUR team in Ukraine registered a lookalike domain and cloned the website and made fake email domains. This is how recruits started sending in proof of Russia's hand in separatist groups in Ukraine. If this sounds familiar, it should. This is actually straight out of the CIA playbook. 3 former high-ranking Ukrainian military intelligence officials spoke to CNN and Bellingcat and revealed how they orchestrated this insane operation. They insisted that they had US intelligence support in the form of technical advice and funding. They say the American agents helped shape how to lure the mercenaries, how to vet them, and how to make the fake company feel real. The CIA has a well-documented history of conducting rendition operations going back decades. They've used similar tactics to seize individuals and transfer them to other countries. In CIA training,
Hey CIA, you know how to do this? Ah, come on, this is Monday.
this falls under elicitation ops. What that means is, as an intelligence officer, you work to get someone to incriminate themselves. You do this through staged interactions that feel casual or beneficial to your target. And we know the CIA has stated in the past that they consider themselves to be authorized to help Ukraine with non-lethal missions. This has the clear fingerprints of a US intelligence operation because there are at least 2 other well-known examples since the Cold War of this exact fake job recruitment method being used by the CIA. Once against the Soviet Union and once against Iraq's nuclear program. It's straight out of their tactics. Meanwhile, the KGB is usually known for their wet work and murder with poisoned plutonium. So the Ukrainians have their fake private military company.
That's a stupid movie. Cocaine. Sometimes, like I've watched old movies about Arnold and things. I'm like, is that purposefully bad? Just because it's funny that way? Did they have humor like that back then? Or it's literally just bad and we find it funny? I don't even know.
Naturally, they're making recruitment calls, pretending to interview the Russian mercenaries for these potential jobs. The Ukrainian posing as Sergei Petrovich promised one of the Russian recruits, codenamed Shaman, that he would be made platoon commander. He'd be running the unit how he saw fit with total freedom. Shaman was a Russian merc that had a ton of experience, and he would basically do the recruiting himself for them. They essentially outsourced the job to him.
Что-то обзвоните там, и если парни хотят, то могут документы как бы сбрасывать.
Ну да, ну просто это время.
According to the Bellingcat report, many but not all of the targeted mercenaries had fought in Ukraine's Donbas region as part of the infamous Wagner private mercenary contractor. Others fought as part of Russian-sponsored volunteer corps, while others had been working directly for Russia's military or security services. The officers even explicitly explained how the Russian government was providing support to them and helping direct the day-to-day operations of the Wagner PMC. We have to remember, in 2020, everyone in Ukrainian and NATO intelligence believed that these Wagner fighters were actually there as an arm of the Russian military. But at that time, the public had no hard, court-usable evidence of this on the world stage. Russia was still denying and maintaining Wagner was a private company acting independently. Russian Merc, Lieutenant Colonel Krivenko, was the most senior mercenary officer they managed to recruit. And
Usually people don't... Again, there are extremes, but usually people don't risk shit without anything in, like return. So if you have somebody acting on their own, there'll be like end goal of some kind. But if there are private groups that are acting in geopolitics where like something that benefits a country, I mean, it's obvious. There's a reason why groups like that exist in around Russia or Russia related. How many other groups you can think of who work privately like that and just do their own thing like that? All right, that has these kind of like goals that like affect countries and not their own personal gain or something. Of course, it's Russia is backing them. That's just common sense. Russia knew like people think like of course Russia is backing them. Russia knew like they don't have evidence. So obviously that's why this operation was there.
During a phone call with the Ukrainian sting operation, he described how in 2014 he was instructed directly by the Russian Ministry of Defense's recruitment office to form a mercenary battalion to fight in eastern Ukraine.
2 года прослужил в морской пехоте. Последняя должность моя командира отдельного батальона морской пехоты в Астрахани.
Скажите, пожалуйста.
This bit of intelligence was the best evidence they'd ever gotten, directly tying the Russian Federation to the separatists in the Donbass. It was at this moment in the operation that they still had a few different options. They could end the mission right there, having already gathered intelligence, or the Ukrainian agents could press their luck and try to lure the targets into a third country. If the mercenaries could be brought, somehow lured to Poland, Hungary, or one of the Baltic nations, then Ukrainian government could request their extradition back to Ukraine to face trial. Once the fake company had its list of potential recruits, Ukrainian intel handpicked 28 suspected criminals who were linked to war crimes, and then they padded the roster out with 5 clean recruits, new green newbies, to make it look legit. This way, the war criminals wouldn't recognize each other once they got on the bus and say, hey, wait a second, didn't we all commit those war crimes together in Donbass last year? The plan was to fly them out of Russia to Turkey for their Venezuela connection. But then, instead of going to Venezuela, they would be secretly diverted to Ukraine for arrest. The plan was to stage an emergency landing on Ukrainian soil of the aircraft carrying the targets to their fictitious fake destination in Turkey. This was a Mission Impossible style operation because the transfer hub to this plausible destination required the mercenaries' plane to only cross into Ukrainian airspace for roughly 28 minutes. That's it. That would just be barely long enough to let them make the emergency landing at Boryspil Airport. Forcing the plane to land would have been accomplished by faking an emergency on board. And here's where COVID-19 ruined everything. By mid-2020, Russia had slammed its border shut, air travel was a nightmare, but Belarus was still open, so the operatives had to pivot and figure something out. The Russian mercenaries would be bussed over the border, checked in at the lakeside resort, and told that they'd fly out in a few days. That pause, though, was the death of the operation, and we'll see how. What happened next is Belarusian security services noticed that the spa had some new clientele. They stuck out like sore thumbs. 33 big dudes with military haircuts, keeping to themselves, having tea while watching the ducks at the lake. These guys weren't like all the other people there. They weren't romantic couples having a getaway. At least I don't think they were. I'm not judging, but...
Oh, they're romantic, alright. Not the way you want, though. Imagine that scene. This is that bathhouse scene from like Witcher 3 or something, that mission. Suddenly, like, people just, like, just this bearded, like, whole camouflage people, because of course they're wearing that, walks inside, everybody screams and runs away. Oh, we just here to have fun.
They didn't exactly blend in with the heart patients and mineral bath regulars there. Hours before the mercenaries were set to leave, the Belarusian KGB stormed the resort. The Belarusian security guard officers kicked in doors and arrested the men. Then state TV broadcast the footage, the arrests, the IDs, the mugshots, because the presidential election was only 2 weeks away at that point, and Lukashenko had already arrested his main opposition. He deeply feared intervention from Russia and the West messing with his elections. The KGB was on the lookout for any foreign groups. In Minsk, Even senior officials were confused. Why would their closest ally in Russia send in a private army right before the election? In Moscow, the Kremlin acted just as surprised, saying they did not have complete information. In Kyiv, the reaction was fury and disbelief. President Zelensky called Belarus's President Lukashenko and formally requested extradition of the suspects to Ukraine. Lukashenko, for a while, dangled the 33 detained mercenaries in front of both Ukraine and Russian authorities. He seemed indifferent to who got them in the end at the time. He even invited both countries to make their own case for why they should receive the captives. He was
Okay, seriously, like, why was Lukashenko was afraid of Putin? Like, around this time, this is around COVID, so I don't get it. So, are you telling me that Lukashenko and Putin is not as buddy-buddy as they show? Belarus just being like Russia 2.0? Or is that by just fear? Like, look what happened to Ukraine, so Belarus would not go against Russia, so Lukashenko can keep whatever power he has. Is that what it is? And that's why he's afraid? That's interesting.
was enjoying holding court. Then he got on the phone with Putin, and within a week, 32 of the men were back in Russia. The 33rd was a dual Belarusian Russian citizen. He stayed behind. For Ukraine's intelligence services, it was an 18-month project that had gone up in smoke in an instant. And for the political class in Kyiv, it was kind of a grenade. Opposition stormed parliament holding signs that read, "Time to name the traitors of Ukraine and we demand the truth." Was it a mole inside the Ukrainian services that tipped off Belarus? Russia's FSB intelligence agency turned the story around and spun it that it was actually a CIA-led plot designed to damage Russian-Belarusian relations, and they claim Ukraine was just a pawn in an attempt to destabilize the whole region. At the time, Lukashenko was facing the biggest protests of his rule. There ended up being destabilization anyway, because that presidential election was chaos. Lukashenko claimed he got an enormous 80% of the vote, which actually sparked massive protests anyway, drawing hundreds of thousands to the streets across the country.
He should have gone with 90, would have been better. 94%. I'm untouchable, son. That's what he should have done. All right. This is insane, man. All the shit that happened. But okay, Ukrainian president saying, "Oh, give us them." Like, maybe he shouldn't have done that. Keep it quiet. Maybe they could have salvaged it somehow. I don't know, something. But this is a dead giveaway. Like, oh yeah, we are involved into this shit. The whole operation just went ape shit because of that. Of course, Belarus was gonna go give them back to Russia. Why would they anger Putin? That's not gonna happen.
He cracked down, detaining 60,000 people, and then even reached out to Putin for assistance. Ironically, Putin then offered to send soldiers into Belarus.
How shitty it is that you're like controlling your country in that way, suppressing everyone. And when your own people rise up, you ask another country to suppress your own people so you can keep power. What the fuck is even this? This is insane.
This mission also reinforced something else: the post-2014 partnership between Ukrainian intelligence and American CIA was both Ukraine's biggest asset and vulnerability. Because on the one hand, the training had transformed their GUR and SBU into a formidable service, but on the other hand, any hint of US involvement gave Russia and Belarus ammunition to paint Ukraine as an American puppet.
But there's also another element. Like, people ask, like, what could have something be done that could have prevented Russia from invading Ukraine? Probably there's no answer to this. Like, could have, would have, should have. Like, nobody knows. But maybe US's involvement at this level was the reason why Putin panicked and with his paranoia invaded Ukraine, because he thought he had to. Trying to push NATO there, right? Because CIA is involved so much. Yeah, shit like this is what panicked Russia, panicked Putin at this level. Because CIA has been involved in this way, like US intelligence has been involved with Ukraine this much. So of course, Putin's going to get paranoid when he realized that. If they had stayed away, if Ukraine has acted as a buffer state of some kind, maybe Putin wouldn't be so like paranoid. Maybe not. He would have still invaded, but who knows? Like, this is like one of those things, right? This is like a geopolitics failure when it comes to all this shit that happened, right? You can't blame somebody else. Obviously, it's Russia who's at wrong to invade Ukraine, but other powers like USA could have done something better. NATO could have done something better, like stay away somewhat. Keep Ukraine as a buffer state or something.
puppet. However, US officials, of course, flatly deny they were involved. One senior official told CNN those claims were false, saying the CIA did know about the plan, confirming that much, but that they weren't involved in the actual execution. For the Ukrainian SBU, they learned new methods that they would later use in their drone attack against Russia's strategic bombers. It showed the need for airtight operational security, faster execution, and better control over staging points in foreign territory. If you want to see all my sources and
Yeah, well, there you go, the sting to catch Russian mercenary by General Cappy army. That was elaborate shit. Somehow it failed because of COVID in the end. Yeah. And this is insane, the level of like all the CIA thing you hear of. Like apparently it's true. Every time you hear a story, like yeah, they are doing this next level thing. And you know, yeah. But it's still like fucked up. Only thing I can think of from all this, like how much CIA was involved with Ukraine. How much America was involved with Ukraine in general. Maybe shit like this what caused the war, right? Obviously, Putin and Russia is to blame here, but maybe Putin wouldn't have been so paranoid if CIA wasn't involved, because there's a reason behind paranoia. USA was involved. CIA is constantly involved in Ukraine. So Putin's going to think like, what if they're coming to get me type of shit. Maybe you should have stayed away. That's the fucked up, right? USA blames every other country like, okay, it's China, it's India, oil buying. No, it's your failure of geopolitics. That's what did this shit. Alright, well, I'll see you next time.